Hello. It's good to hear you guys again. This one is a bit more grim than what I usually do. Mostly because it's an actual true story. It's about the death of Lela and Raymond Howard on Sunday, June 29th, 1997. An elderly couple of Lela and Raymond Howard from Salado, Texas, decided that they were going to a day festival in a temple near a nearby town. It would be a 15-mile trip, and Lela was driving. The couple departed that morning despite earlier objections by Lela's son, who begged to drive the mother and father himself. Instead, Lela declined. "No, we know where to go. We go every year." Lela's son's concern stemmed from the fact that his 83-year-old mother was showing signs of Alzheimer's disease, and was often confused by things. At one time, Lela was even meant to show up at a local Walmart morning for coffee at 10:30, instead arrived at 10:30 at night. Perplexed at why the son is not up, the 83-year-old Raymond was showing signs of mental deterioration due to the recent brain surgery done during combat, a stroke, and head injury. Lela and Raymond were not aware of their mental decline and left for the festival that morning without even telling each other their adult son, who had lived just next door. The afternoon passed, and the Howards didn't return home. However, at the local Walmart in Temple, a greeter there remembered seeing Lela and Raymond come in for coffee late that afternoon. After that, the couple's movements had not been accounted for. Several of the children between the two had become immensely worried for their elderly parents' safety, so they decided to contact authorities, and a missing persons bulletin was posted that day. However, the Howards remained missing. 3 days later, on Wednesday, July 2nd, a newspaper published an article in the Austin American-Statesman about the missing couple, entitled "Elderly Salado Couple Missing on Trip to Nowhere." It reads, "Lela and Raymond are on a 4-day trip within the air. The Central Texas couple are in their late 80s and missing help, but somehow they've turned a 15-mile journey for a cup of coffee into a 500-mile plus misadventure into the destination of unknown." That same day, a deputy in rural Arkansas pulled over Lela for driving her headlights off as if it was nighttime. Lela and Raymond were 500 miles away from the original orienting point in Salado, Texas. The deputy noticed that Lela was polite, gentle, and acted just like any other grandmother. When Lela stated that they were trying to get back to Texas, the deputy noted that they were heading in the wrong direction, as if they were trying to return to that state, so he gave them direction. The deputy didn't ask where she lived, but she could not remember. The deputy didn't let them off with a warning. The couple pull over again about half an hour driving in their high speed with their high beams on. This deputy also let them go. Neither of the deputies knew about the news article, nor that the Howards were missing persons. The Howards once again disappeared. The next day, July 3rd, there was another article about the Howards. They had allegedly been seen at a farmer's market in Arkansas, and the authorities in 11 states were on the lookout for them. On the 4th of July, another article It stated had narrowed their search to specific counties in Arkansas. There were no further developments in the search until Wednesday, July 9th, when the couple's story was covered in CBS Morning News, and yet another article was published about the Howards in the Austin American-Statesman, making the front page. That article's editor, Denise Guillermo, stopped by the Howard's house, and the signs of the couple's mental decay were obvious. There was folded clothing still laying on the couple's bed, as if they had started packing for some long trip. The television was unplugged, and hearing aids were left behind in the bathroom. There were various toiletries, even though the month had currently been July. The Howard's calendar is still on the page for February. Perhaps most notably, the Howard's cat, Happy, was left behind and essentially left abandoned. The couple's children and grandchildren, apparently unaware how bad their parents' mental health had become. The search identifies authorities as the employed of thousands of deputies, carefully combed through the obscure back roads and bush areas, posted flyers, and questioned many civilians over a very large area. Helicopters were even later used in the search, and search grew to over 1,000 miles from Salado, Texas, and by one of the Howard's grandsons, they offered a reward for $1,000 for his grandparents' safe return. Tips came flooding after CBS morning show, but none of them had led to the Howard's discovery. On the next day, July 10th, Thursday, of the Howard's grandchildren marked in a newspaper article. The hardest part is thinking that they are suffering or need us and we can't get to them. Another bleakly stated, I don't know what we're going to do if we find them alive now. Unfortunately, everyone's worst fears were finally realized on Saturday, July 12th, when the bodies of Lela and Raymond Howard were discovered in their car by hikers at the bottom of the 20-foot cliff just out of Hot Springs, Arkansas. Raymond was still in the passenger seat, and Lela was about 20 feet away in a ravine, still clutching her purse and keys. Apparently, the car went off the cliff, and she put her car in park and turned off her headlights, opened the passenger door for her deceased husband, and crawled away to die of her injuries in a sustained crash. There were no skid marks at the bottom of the cliff, indicating that Lela's car had driven straight off the edge. A crash scene investigator estimated that the car had been found 50 miles per hour in a stretch leading off the road off the cliff. Lela didn't see the cliff edge or was coming some way or otherwise distracted, or even became momentarily confused and lost the ability to safely drive. It is not known for how long Howard's bodies remained undiscovered. Sadly, the crash site where Lela and Raymond's bodies were found was within a previously searched zone by authorities, but searchers could not see the bottom of the cliff due to the excess brush in their line of sight. The searchers, Lela and Raymond, were later buried next to their respective first spouses. Austin, Texas songwriter Tony Scalazzo, on July 2nd, a news article in the American Statesman, in the midst of a Lela search room, he had become inspired to write a song with his alternative rock band, Fastball, based on Lela and Raymond's disappearance. It's titled The Way. About the song, Scalazzo is romanticized that take on what happened. Scalazzo pictured them taking off to have fun like they did when they first met. Scalazzo wrote the song before the bodies of Howards were discovered. The album contained a way. All the Pain Money Can Buy was released in 1998, 1 year after the Howards' bodies were found. Despite the Way's cheerful, optimistic lyrics, it's pretty haunting. They made up their minds and they started packing. They left the road before the sun came up that day and exited to the eternal summer slacking. But where they're going, without ever knowing the way, they drank up the wine and they got to the talking. They now had more important things to say. And the car broke down. They started walking. What were they going to do without ever knowing the way? Anyone can see that they would walk on a paved lagoon. It's always summer. They'll never get cold. They'll never get hungry. They'll never go old and gray. You can see their shadows wandering off somewhere. They won't make it home, but they really don't care. They want it to the highway. They're happier there today. Their children woke up. They couldn't find them. They left before the sun came up that day. They drove off and left them all behind them. But where they were going, without ever knowing the way. My thoughts, again, return to Lela and Raymond burning off that cliff in Arkansas. Unfortunately, I never seemed to get any answers from my questions. I suppose I can guess that maybe Lela had seen the cliff edge, but didn't have enough time to react. I wonder if she had the mental faculties to function anymore. It leaves me thinking, what was going through their heads as their car plunged off the cliff? Fear? Confusion? I like to think otherwise. Perhaps at that moment it wasn't 1997 anymore. Maybe it was much earlier for them. Maybe their damaged psyches spared them from the sad reality. Perhaps in that moment, Lela and Raymond, there were just no more medications, no more hearing aids, no more doctor's appointments, no more aching joints, no more glasses, no more operations, no pacemakers, no forgetting, no more confusion. Maybe in that moment, for their entire trip, Lela and Raymond saw themselves as a newlywed couple. Their young skin perpetually gleaming in the summer sun. Lela in her best white wedding dress, and Raymond in his finest black tuxedo. Maybe envisioned a just married sign hanging in the back of their rear view window. An empty soup cans tied to their rear bumper. I wonder if they held their hands. Maybe when Lela and Howard drove off the cliff in Arkansas in 1999, they weren't scared. Maybe they were just smiling. It really does make you wonder. Well, have a safe night, guys, and I appreciate listening. And you like, subscribe, and be safe out there. Have a safe night, guys. I'll see you again very soon.